and, and has invested nearly 1.7 billion on upgrades and improvements to its Minnesota facilities since 2010. With almost 1,000 full-time employees, the Flint Hills Resources Pine Bend Refinery is one of the largest employers in Dakota County. And finally, Velocity Public Affairs is a full-service public affairs company that combines experienced leadership with market-leading proprietary technology to help clients strategically address and manage public affairs challenges and opportunities. Now, today, I'm honored to introduce our speaker, Dakota County Chief Prosecutor Jim Backstrom, who is freshly retired from his distinguished 3-decade career as the county attorney in Dakota County. And just want to thank you so much for being here and sharing your wealth of knowledge and experience with us. And I'll turn it over to you for your presentation. And then at the end, we'll have some time for questions from the audience that you can submit either through the Q&A or chat function. But Jim, I'll turn it over to you now.
Well, thank you, Amanda. It's really nice to be with you all this morning. This is the first event that I've done as a retired county attorney. Last Saturday was officially my last day, the 27th of February, which was the end of a pay period. But Friday was the last time I was actually in the office that I've spent over 43 and a half years in. I'll just tell you a little bit of background about myself as I get started, and then I have a little PowerPoint to go through with you concerning some of the issues that are currently involved with the county attorney's office and the last year, which we've struggled through as all of you have as well under the difficult circumstances we all find ourselves in today. But listen, it's really and truly been an honor and a privilege to have served the citizens of Dakota County for as long as I have. I first joined the office in June of 1977 when I was still going to law school at William Mitchell College of Law, as it was then known. And I had a chance just kind of by, sometimes life is funny, you're just in the right place at the right time. And one of my best friends in law school who I had met a couple of years earlier when I started was working as a clerk for a judge down in Hastings. And he said, Jim, I think there's a law clerk position available in the county attorney's office. So I applied for it and was fortunate enough to be hired as a law clerk in the civil division of the county attorney's office at that time. And then the following year, after I graduated from law school in 1978, I was hired as an assistant county attorney by then County Attorney John Sonstang. And really started a career which I've been so blessed to have had for the last 43 years. I worked for the first 4 years as an assistant county attorney in our office's civil division. After that, I was promoted by then County Attorney Bob Carroll, and John Sonstang had gone on to become a professor at William Mitchell College of Law, where he's still at Mitchell Hamlin School of Law today, teaching students and doing a tremendous job. But Bob Carolyn became the county attorney after John Sonstang left, and Bob promoted me to be the head of the civil division of the office, which gave me a great opportunity to get some management experience at an early age. That really helped me because that was in 1982, and 5 years later, Bob Carolyn became a judge in our county. And I was fortunate enough to be selected by the County Board of Commissioners because when there's a vacancy midterm, as there is now, it's the Dakota County Board of Commissioners that appoints a prosecutor to serve out the remaining years of the current term of the county attorney. And I was fortunate enough to be picked by the county board for the position. And since then, I've been elected 8 times by the citizens of Dakota County to serve as their county attorney. It's a 4-year elected position, and the next election is in 2022. So it's something to watch for and certainly keep your eyes out for, because it really is an important position in our community, a position of public trust and responsibility that impacts a lot of lives each and every day. And it's really been an honor and a privilege to have held that position for as long as I have, as I said. Over the years, I've served as the county attorney for 33 years and 5 months before I stepped down last week. And you know, I do have a few, those of you that read the announcement of my retirement, I mentioned some health concerns, and you know, I'm not going to get into the details of those, but I can tell you I've had some long-term issues with my lungs, where I get frequent pneumonia, and I've become immune to a lot of antibiotics, and it's getting a little scary. And I've been struggling the last year and a half, much more so than I had before, and it slowed me down some. And I guess with the environment we find ourselves in during this pandemic, I felt it was time for me to move on, and just had my 68th birthday last month as well. So I'm getting up there in years a little bit. But let me tell you, over the 33 years and 5 months that I was the county attorney, I had a chance to work with 4 different county sheriffs, all of whom were tremendous and did a great job. I worked, if you can believe it or not, 66 different police chiefs that I worked with as the county attorney here in Dakota County. We have 11 cities in Dakota County, and they've all had just amazing police chiefs over the years, and wonderful staffs that I had the privilege of work with as our partners in law enforcement. You know, there's those of you that watch Law and Order on TV. You probably hear every time the show starts about the 2 most important aspects of the criminal justice system in terms of protecting the public safety, and it's the law enforcement individuals who do the investigations, and it's the prosecutors who make the decisions as to what cases there's sufficient evidence to take forward and to pursue justice and try to protect the victims of those crimes. And we work together, obviously, very closely, and it's an important partnership that we have. And I've been very privileged to work with great police departments in this community over the last 33 years. You know, maybe with that, I'll get into the PowerPoint a little bit. If you could move on to the next slide. Thank you, Amanda. This is just an overview of the county attorney's office for those of you that aren't that familiar with it. And most people, when they think of the county attorney, they think of the prosecution function, because that's clearly one of the most important things that a county attorney does. In most parts of our country, the county attorneys or the prosecutors are known as district attorneys or state's attorneys. You hear that term quite a bit. In those offices where you hear those terms, that's all that the district attorney does, is prosecute crime, or the state attorney. That's their job, is to prosecute crime. But county attorneys in Minnesota have a lot more responsibilities than just that, and a lot of people don't realize that. So we have a first assistant and a chief deputy in the office, and we have 4 separate divisions. We have, you know, our criminal division, which you can see, and it is the largest division in our office. Right now, we have 45 attorneys, if you count the county attorney position, which is vacant at the moment. When I first started, by the way, back in 1978 as an assistant county attorney, I think there were 8 attorneys that worked in the office, and today we have 45. This county has grown dramatically, obviously, in the last 33 years. But anyways, our criminal division deals with adult prosecution, and then we have a drug prosecution unit. We have a juvenile protective services a unit that handles the juvenile crime and some other protective services issues that the county attorney is involved with in terms of protecting vulnerable adults and protecting children who've been neglected or abused. Those cases, by the way, are civil matters. When we intervene to protect a child who's at risk or has been abused or neglected, we intervene civilly with an action and take the case to court, because obviously the government can't step in and take a child away from their parents unless there's a basis to do that. When we do that, we intervene with a child protection proceeding. We work with our social services department in Dakota County as we investigate those cases from that perspective. And then we intervene and seek judicial authority or approval of our ability to take custody of the child for as long as that's necessary. Obviously, the goal is to reunite the child with the family once it's safe to do so, if it's safe to do so. If not, then we can terminate parental rights. But that's all done through civil legal actions. At the same time that we're doing those things in those types of cases, we may very well be prosecuting the adult that was responsible for harming that child or placing that child at risk for committing a crime. And those are two separate things completely. That's why they're in separate units of our office as we work through those cases. There's other things that we do in the Juvenile and Protective Services Division and Appellate Division. They handle all the appeals for the office too as well, most of which are criminal related appeals. As we take cases up to the appellate courts. But we also handle truancy issues. We work with social services on that. We handle issues involving adults who are chemically dependent or mentally ill that may need to be civilly committed, again, to protect themselves and to provide the treatment and the services that they need to stay healthy. We have to intervene to do that, and we do that through that particular unit of our office. Then if you switch to the other side of the chart on the left as you're looking at it, we have a child support enforcement division in our office. Hardly anyone realizes that the county attorney handles child support matters. These are extremely important cases, cases that lead to ensuring that children have the resources that they're entitled to from both of their parents when they're brought into the world, have a responsibility and an obligation to protect them. Excuse me. Excuse me. But anyways, I have 6 assistant county attorneys, or the office does now have 6 assistant county attorneys. That's their full-time job, is to enforce child support. And that particular unit of our office is located in West St. Paul at the Northern Service Center in Dakota County. The rest of our office is located in Hastings, which is the county seat, as I'm sure you all realize. And it was the original, that's where the original government center in Dakota, that's where all Dakota County services were when I first started working for the county in 1977. By the way, that building, that's now called the Judicial Center, which houses the county attorney's office, the corrections department, and the courts. It's in the Judicial Center, but that building housed all of county government, the highway department and the county board and the administration and social services and correction. It housed everything back in 1977 when I first started working there. In fact, the building was pretty new. It had just been completed about a year and a half before. But now it's just a judicial center, and that's how big the county has grown. And we have the Apple Valley Western Service Center and the Northern Service Center and offices in the administration center in Hastings and a county jail and law enforcement center that the sheriff has most of his personnel operate out of, and offenders who are in custody are housed in the county jail in Hastings as well. Hastings is a really unique town. By the way, just a little bit of trivia for you. People wonder why it's a little bit remote from the center of Dakota County's population now, which is more towards the west end of the county and the freeways. But Hastings in the 1850s, this county was founded in 1849, 9 years before Minnesota became a state. Dakota County existed, and Hastings in the 1950s was the largest city in Dakota County because it sits on the Mississippi River, and that was the main source of commerce in America back then. And that's the reason why Hastings became the county seat of Dakota County, and it's going to always remain the county seat. But it's a little bit of a drive and a little bit remote to get there. Anyway, sorry for the trivia. But anyways, now we're back. So the Child Support Enforcement Division, we collect approximately $50 million a year in the last 3-4 years, $45 to $50 million in child support, which benefits a lot of children in our community. And it's an important part of the work that the county attorney's office does in connection. We work with what's called the 4D Office of Economic Assistance in Dakota County. Is working on that as well as the county attorney's office. We're a partnership and a team as we pursue those important obligations for children. Then we have a civil division because the county attorney is the legal advisor to Dakota County government. So we handle all civil litigation. Our county is self-insured, so it's the county attorney that's representing the county in court and any litigation that's involved. There's a few cases where we do seek outside counsel, such as bond counsel, because we're not experts in those issues. And if we have some really complicated litigation involving Lake Billsby Dam or something like that, which the county owns, so we could retain outside counsel, and it's the county attorney that does that with the support and the approval of the county board when that's necessary. But it doesn't happen that often. It's typically the county attorneys, assistant county attorneys that are representing the county in court when that happens. So we handle civil litigation, we handle the corporate counsel functions, the legal advice to our county board and all of our county commissioners, and a very important part of the function of the county attorney's office. And then you have our victim witness service unit, which is extremely important to the victims of crime, as I'll talk about in a few minutes. But you can flip to the next slide. Thank you. You know, as a prosecutor, we're known as ministers of justice. You know, our role is to seek justice, but to do so fairly and in an unbiased manner without any prejudice whatsoever. And we do that each and every day as we work through cases that are brought to our attention. We have to conclude as a prosecutor that there's a reasonable likelihood of success at trial before we file a criminal charge against anyone. That's our ethical responsibility as a prosecutor and as a minister of justice. And what a lot of people don't realize is that about 30% of the cases that are presented to our office every year, and this is true of any prosecutor in this state or in America, you know, about a third of the cases that are presented are not charged. And that doesn't mean that a crime, every one of those cases, there was a crime that occurred and there's a victim that was harmed. And it's difficult. It's very difficult to meet with a family or a victim of a crime and explain to them that unfortunately we don't have enough admissible evidence to pursue a criminal charge, because we have to believe that we have enough evidence to prove that person's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt when we get into a court of law and in front of a jury. And it's the unanimous verdict that's required, as we all know, in our criminal justice system, as it should be. It should not be easy to convict someone of a crime. We want to make sure we get it right. And, you know, that's why we have those constitutional protections, and the burden of proof is on the prosecutor, and it's a high burden, as it should be. But anyways, there's a lot of cases that don't get charged, and people don't realize that. And many of those, when we can't charge them, we refer them to city attorneys. You can flip to the next slide. Thank you. We handle as the county attorney. We're the chief prosecutor in the county. We're not the only prosecutor, but we handle all felony cases. A felony is any crime that could result in you being put in prison for more than a year. And we handle all of those, you know, from stealing $1,000 or more all the way up to committing murder, the most serious crime in our community, or any community for that matter. And we do prosecute certain misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors, such as any crime involving a child who's the victim. It's the county attorney that handles that case by state statute. And that's a good law to have in place. And then we also handle certain gross misdemeanor illegal drug crimes that occur in our community, which, you know, as I'll mention in a minute, that's a huge problem. But most misdemeanor or level offenses are prosecuted by city attorneys in our community. They do a terrific job. We have wonderful city attorneys in Dakota County, and each city council hires a city attorney to prosecute the crime and also to serve as their legal advisor in cases and issues that come before them. But any crime that occurs in the unincorporated area of the county, you know, the townships areas of Dakota County, which is still pretty big, you know, so it's a big county geographically, and the whole southern half of the county is still unincorporated. But any crime that occurs there, no matter what level it is, including traffic offenses or misdemeanor level crimes, are prosecuted by the county attorney. And we handle all crimes involving juveniles. If you're under the age of 18 at the time a crime occurs, you're considered to be a juvenile, and any crime involving a juvenile is prosecuted by the county attorney from misdemeanors through felonies. And I'll show you in a minute, there's good news about juvenile crime in our community as we address these. And a lot of people asking, how many juveniles get prosecuted as adults? Because we can prosecute a juvenile as adult for serious and violent offenses. And we have, and this office would in the future do that. But keep in mind, last year there was no juveniles who were prosecuted as adults in the third largest county in Minnesota, here in Dakota. And we typically prosecute less than 0.5% of juveniles that we see as adults, and that's a really good thing. Obviously, it's good that juveniles aren't committing a lot of serious and violent crimes. But if you're over the age of 14, you can be prosecuted as an adult, and it's typically 16 or 17-year-old youth who are prosecuted as adults who commit crimes of violence that could which would warrant that. And we also have a middle ground approach now. We call it the extended juvenile jurisdiction, or EJJ, which allows us to basically give a juvenile one last chance in juvenile court, but they also have an adult sentence that is imposed that hangs over their head if they've committed a crime of a serious crime, but one that does not, in our view, warrant adult prosecution. So that's a challenge, but there aren't that many juveniles that are prosecuted as adults. I just wanted you to know that. Okay, you can flip to the next slide. Thank you. So this is what's been going on in 2020 in the Dakota County Attorney's Office with the pandemic. Obviously, it's had a significant impact. We have a huge backlog of cases in our criminal division because the courts aren't open. There's only 2 courtrooms available that can be used for a trial in Hastings right now, and we have like 12 or maybe 16 courtrooms. I forget the count, but there's a lot of courtrooms. Only 2 of them are large enough that can be spaced out enough for social distancing during the pandemic that we're experiencing to allow us to even have a trial. And there's no public that's allowed in. Public is allowed to watch on video because these are public proceedings, and you're allowed to watch the proceeding if you wish to do so. But you can't be in the courtroom because there's just not enough room. The courtrooms aren't that big enough for that. But and there's only 2, and the only trials that are allowed to go on right now are cases where someone is in custody and has demanded a speedy trial. Someone is entitled to a trial within 90 days after they're arrested if they demand a speedy trial, and we have an obligation under the law to allow that to occur. But other than that, there's really no cases going to trial. So what does that mean? That means cases are getting backlogged significantly. We have cases now with our adult prosecutors are handling anywhere from 225 to 250 open cases per assistant county attorney. And we really, in a normal year, that's about 150 cases that they would handle. These are the drug cases I'm referring to, the illegal drug crimes, which the prosecutors handle a few more of than they do on crimes against persons. But that's a significant increase in terms of a backlog. And our crimes against persons, we have 150 to 190 open cases per prosecutor right now, compared to our goal of 125 on a normal year. So what does that mean? And we have 9 pending homicide cases right now in Dakota County. That's a record. We've never had that many pending murder cases in this county's history. And that's unfortunate. You probably all witnessed the level of violence that's occurring throughout the Twin Cities and throughout our country, for that matter. That's happened. It's unfortunate. It's sad. We need to, as a community, keep working to try to prevent that violence. But I'll tell you, it's led to 9 homicide cases that are pending in Dakota County. These cases take a lot of time, a lot of hearings, a lot of meetings with victims and witnesses, and longer jury trials when they do occur. We're going to be backlogged. It's going to take a year to 2 years to catch up in terms of the court process as a result of the pandemic. In our Juvenile Protective Services Division on the bottom of the screen, you can see that we've had a significant decrease in the number of child protection. That's what a CHIPS petition is, children in need of protection or services. We've had a significant decrease, drop from 249 in 2019 to 135 that we filed last year. That's a little scary, to be honest, because, we believe it's because kids aren't in school. They aren't being seen by the mandated reporters, the teachers, the administrators, the school nurses, the others that might see them and report any incidents of abuse. That's a concern. Kids are at risk. More kids are at risk today than they were before the pandemic occurred. And I think these numbers reflect that. Hopefully we can get beyond that and move forward, because protecting kids is one of our #1 goals in the county attorney's office and in our society. The number of commitment petitions was up last year by 70 some numbers, as you can see. These are, again, people that are mentally ill, chemically dependent. There's been an increase in chemical use as a result of the pandemic, as I'm sure some of you have read. That's resulted in more commitments. You can flip to the next slide. Thank you. On our civil division, we have 9.5 attorneys that work in that area in our office. We've had a huge increase in the number of civil cases we've opened in terms of legal advice in connection with the COVID-19 pandemic, and advising our county board about the CARES Act and how that money can be spent. And by the way, our county board, I believe, did an amazing job in terms of getting money out to businesses in need in our community. That money that was made available by the federal government, but flowed through the state and through the county in terms of its distribution. But it took a lot of legal advice about how to conduct open meetings in a pandemic. And the county board is doing that in a hybrid fashion right now. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And then on top of the 244 additional cases related to the pandemic that we opened for civil legal advice, we have our many typical issues that our civil division handles in a general year. In our child support division, it's been a transition. It's slowed down initially during the pandemic because everything was closed down for a while. But it's basically built itself back up, and many of the hearings, by the way, in both civil hearings in court and criminal hearings, are being done remotely today through Zoom, just like we're talking today. And that's a big, I think there's a lot of negative things from this pandemic, but I think we're going to learn some positive things too, in terms of our ability to conduct more hearings remotely, saving time, saving money in the long term. Some of the lower level early hearings in cases we can do remotely, and we're doing it effectively today. And I think this is going to continue in the years ahead. So that's going to be a positive outcome of the pandemic in terms of our justice system. You can flip to the next slide. Thank you. This is just the numbers of our criminal prosecutions over the last decade. And you can see the adults, the top line is the total number of felony and gross misdemeanor drug crimes that our office has prosecuted during those years. It's been kind of steady, a little bit up and down the last four years, but it was rising significantly in the early 2010s, 2013, 2012, 2013, 2014. It dropped a little bit last year overall, but not that much. And the number of drug crimes are the bottom charts. The blue line is the overall number of drug crimes. That's the single largest crime that we prosecute in Dakota County, is illegal drug cases. And it's a huge problem. And methamphetamine, which is the red line on the bottom, is the #1 illegal drug of abuse in our community. It's not the only drug of abuse. I mean, it can be a deadly drug, but the most deadly drug is fentanyl mixed with opioids that have caused so much damage and so much addiction and so many deaths. You know, there's a statistic I read from the Medical Examiner not long ago that said the number of deaths in Dakota County, and this in 2020 compared to 2019, and this was just through November. It didn't even include the December numbers yet because they didn't have them, but it was up 60%, went up from 26 deaths to 43 deaths in Dakota County related to opioid illegal drug, most of which was mixed with fentanyl. It's really dangerous, really scary. People are dying from it, and we've got to do everything we can to try to prevent it. But illegal drug crimes constitute about 35% of all the prosecutions in Dakota County on any given year. It's a huge problem, and we need to keep working to try to solve it. Next slide, thank you. This is our juvenile crime. This is the one I was alluding to. There was some positive news about juvenile crime. You know, in the third largest county in the state of Minnesota, look how much our crime rate involving kids. The top line is all crime. Most of these are misdemeanor level offenses, as you might suspect with juveniles. Disorderly conduct, fights, you know, misdemeanor level issues, underage use of alcohol, that kind of stuff. But look how much it's dropped from 2012 when it hit its peak at almost 1,500 cases down to 646 in 2020. This is an amazing statistic in terms of how much lower the level of juvenile crime is in this large county over those years. Now, the level of more serious felony level crime, which is the bottom line, is pretty steady. It hasn't changed that much. But that's, you know, even that is a good thing when you think about how much the county has grown in population. But this is just positive news. And I think it's reflective of the fact that we have a lot of early intervention programs with kids and crime prevention programs, which I've always made a priority in the office that I led for 33 years, reaching out and trying to help kids and stop these issues before they get started, help kids be successful in life and be the best they can be. So thank you. Next slide. These are some of the key criminal cases. I'm not going to go through all these with you. These are just you know, 6 or 7 of the pending homicide related offenses that we have. Shooting deaths, too many of these shooting deaths we read about in the paper almost every day, unfortunately and tragically, in the Twin Cities. And some of these occur in Dakota County. We do have overdose deaths, as I mentioned, and if we can prove who supplied the illegal drugs that led to someone's death, that's a murder crime. And you can see we've charged an individual with that in a case out of Hastings, the middle of the screen there. Shooting, stabbings, just terrible, senseless tragedies that have taken lives in our community, and just really sad and difficult as we go through and process these cases. Extremely difficult for the families of surviving family members of the victims. Thank you. You can move to the next slide. Our victim services unit, as I mentioned, is really an important part of the county attorney's office. We have 6 advocates who work with the victims of crime. You know, I hope none of you have been the victims of a serious crime in your life, but I'll tell you this: if you were the victim of a crime, you would need some support. You would need some help. I mean, the criminal system is kind of daunting in terms of what occurs and how long it can take, and we need to provide support and encouragement and help to those victims of crime, and we do it every day with the wonderful victim advocates that we have in our office. We had over 4,000 contacts with victims in 2020. These are new contacts. We have ongoing contacts with victims from prior years, because it can take a felony level crime can take 1 to 3 years. If it's a murder offense, to move it through the system, it can take up to that long. And during the pandemic, as I said, everything's been backlogged even more. But we also help people through with post-conviction issues and sentencing, and answer their questions, help them with obtaining the restitution that they're entitled to from individuals who have harmed them, and prevention and outreach, and try to help them in the future. We have a Safe at Home program that the Secretary of State runs, that my office works with, in terms of protecting victims who may still be at risk and want to try to maintain their privacy as much as they can. This is a really important program where you can basically, you can get rid of your public address and you get your mail through the Secretary of State's office through a post office box, and no one can find out where you're living, unless you're posted on a social networking thing. So anyways, it's a really important program, and it works to protect victims every day. But this is a really important part of our office, and I'm always was proud of this unit of our office, and helped it expand while I served as county attorney. Thank you. You can move to the next. This is an area that, as I mentioned, it's really a priority for me in terms of trying to stop crime in our community and help kids. For many years, we did an anti-bullying program where we went out. I talked to over 15, probably about 15,000 young people over the years about bullying issues. You know, this is a much bigger deal than most people realize. You know, it can really adversely impact a young person's life, and it's led to far too many suicides across our state and nation. It's not okay. It's not okay to treat people, you know, with meanness, and it's just not acceptable. And we need to stand up and stop it and say we're going to do everything we can to protect those kids. And listen, we have great teachers that are and school administrators that are working hard to support this as well. Because when I did that program, I did it in conjunction with schools in our community. A lot of chemical health outreach issues to try to address that huge problem of chemical abuse. We've got diversion programs in our office for young people and for adults as well for lower level crimes. Try to help them with these issues and avoid a criminal record, but to deal with the underlying problem and the issue. We've had a program we've taken community-wide through our community relations director in our office, Monica Jensen, this top secret project that she's worked with a number of school districts. Maybe some of you have seen it. It's really a great program about how many things can be hidden in a teen's bedroom that a parent has no clue about today. Listen, we all need to open our eyes.
We're having a little bit of technical difficulties here. We lost Jim. We're trying to get him back. Sorry, everyone.
In the interim, if anybody has any questions that they would like to submit, if and when we get Jim back on the webinar here, please do that in the comments. We'd love to be able to ask him some of your questions coming from your perspective of what he's been talking about.
I can also use it as a commercial break to plug our next public affairs series breakfast, which is going to be on Friday, April 2nd. And we're going to have the two newly elected members of the Dakota County Board, Lori Halverson and Mary Heyman Rowland, joining us. So an opportunity to get to know our newly elected county commissioners.
Can anybody that's with us still hear me talking? I'm wondering if this is a Zoom thing or if we are
Okay,
having other issues.
I'm back.
Oh, there he is.
Listen, I'm really sorry. My internet got cut off when my power went out, so I apologize. But anyways, I'm really sorry. Should I just keep rolling here?
Yes, please, Jim. Thank you.
Okay, well, anyways, I apologize for the delay, technical issue with my internet, but I'm back. So anyways, we've worked a lot on mental illness issues, safety for drivers and bikers and walkers, and had too many traffic deaths in our community as well. We got a great East Metro Crime Prevention Coalition that I work with the sheriffs and the county attorneys, or I did, and our office will continue to work with in the East Metro area for Ramsey and Washington and Dakota counties, and we put on a number of important programs over the years. You can flip to the next slide. Thank you. That's it. So I'll open it up to see if anybody has any questions. I'll just say one last thing, before I do that. But I'll tell you that being a county attorney is not always an easy job. It comes with a lot of long hours, a lot of stress at times. I'm really grateful to my family for supporting me over the years because I've missed a lot of family events as my kids were growing up. But listen, it also comes with a lot of fulfillment. You really have an opportunity to make a positive difference in people's lives each and every day as you fight for justice and fairness, with fairness and integrity in our criminal justice system, as you pursue child protection issues to protect children and vulnerable adults, and and as we enforce child support obligations and help those who are suffering from addiction. Really proud of the work we've done with drug courts, which I didn't mention, treatment courts. These programs are amazing in terms of saving lives and dealing with these underlying addiction, the disease of addiction that is destroying so many lives in our community. And we're trying to keep these people jail and prison through our drug and treatment courts, and they make a huge difference. And I've been really proud to help get those started in Dakota County. But anyways, thank you. I couldn't have had a more important and meaningful career, and I'm grateful to everyone who's supported me along the way. So thank you for that, and I'll open it up for questions.
Well, thanks so much, Jim. That was great. I know I learned a ton that I had no idea about all the work that the county attorney's office did. So thank you. We've got a few questions in the chat, and we also had some from our public affairs committee, but maybe I'll start out with one from our committee the other day, just because I know it tends to be the legal hot topic of the state. And going into the Chauvin trial next week, what would you, as an expert there, recommend that the public pay attention to, as the news reports and proceedings go on there?
Well, it's going to be a challenging time, obviously, because of the intense public interest in that case. Obviously, the concern about what occurred last May and June and July after George Floyd's tragic death. We don't want to see another occurrence of those types of things. Peaceful protests are great and certainly supportive of those, but when they turn into violence and rioting and burning of buildings, that's a scary thing, and we don't want to see that happen. And I know the law enforcement community, including Sheriff Leslie here in Dakota County, have been working hard to, and our police chiefs have been working hard to be prepared. We had some things that flowed over into Dakota County last summer as a result of the civil unrest that was occurring. We hope that doesn't occur. I know they're working hard to prevent it. Listen, this is a trial. It's an important trial, obviously extremely important. And I hope people will allow it to occur and go through the process and not try to interfere in any way with the process because it's not easy. And the attorneys that are involved on both sides of the case are under an intense amount of pressure. And I would just ask everyone to let them do their jobs, let the judge do his job. And we'll see what happens. And we have to we have to understand, we have to, as the civil society, we have to accept the verdict of the jury in our criminal justice system, whether we agree with it or not. And it's not always easy, because I've been on those sides of cases as well, where it was hard to accept a verdict from a jury of not guilty. But those things happen. I'm not suggesting that it's going to happen here, but listen, we got to let the trial work its way through. It's going to be a challenging time. It's going to be on TV every night. The jurors are under, just think of these jurors, that these 14, there'll be 14 or 15 jurors picked, but only 12 will ultimately sit. But just think of the amount of pressure that they're going to be under as citizens, just having to be there to make this difficult decision in a case of such high profile nature. Listen, I just hope everybody stays safe. That's the bottom line, and we hope justice is served.
Yeah, thank you for that. And kind of in a similar line, like obviously you went through a lot of elections for county attorney, and given the amount of times that you were reelected, probably not that many of them were competitive, since you obviously did a fantastic job as county attorney. But now I think things at the county attorney level may be becoming a bit more political, just because with emotions being high and some of these issues bubbling up, that how do you see the elections for county attorney changing moving forward?
Well, it's a very good question, and there certainly has been changes across this nation in terms of the election of prosecutors. And prosecutors are elected in every state in America except for 4, I think, where they're appointed by the Attorney General or the governor. But in most states, including here in Minnesota, all of the county attorneys are elected officials. We're independent elected officials. We run on a nonpartisan basis, which is the way it should be, I believe. In many parts of the country, the prosecutors are running on partisan election tickets. We're not partisan politicians. Politics doesn't impact the decisions that we make on a daily basis. It can't impact those decisions. We have to be above that and not let those political issues get involved. So, but listen, is there more challenges against prosecutors today in elections? Yes, there definitely are across this country. And I think there's been a movement to attack some of the work of prosecutors in America unfairly and unjustly. But listen, we are elected officials. We're proud of the fact that we stand up, and it's really important that this position is an elected position, because you have a lot of authority and a lot of power as a county attorney. You need to be responsible to the public for the decisions that you make. And you shouldn't have anyone else telling you how to make those decisions. And as an elected official, you're the one that's standing there before the public and making these difficult calls, because they're not always easy decisions to make. So I would just ask that people be respectful and understand the work of a prosecutor, as I've kind of explained a little bit of it to you today. Understand what we do, why we do it, how we do it, and ask good questions. Yes, but we're people too, and these aren't easy jobs. As I said, they come with a lot of stress. So we just have to do our best each and every day, and I've always tried to do that, and I know whoever replaces me will as well.
Great, thank you. A question from the chat. Does the county attorney play any role in helping ex-offenders transition out of incarceration into meaningful employment?
Well, very good question, and it's an important issue. I've been supportive of improvements to our expungement law. In fact, there's a bill before the legislature right now that I've been a strong supporter of, and through the Minnesota County Attorneys Association, which I served on the board of directors for 30 years. It's to allow individuals to have their crimes, lower level offenses we're talking about, but expunged from their record, so these don't haunt them for the rest of their lives. and it'll become automatic under the bills that we're proposing for many of those crimes. So it's going to happen after a certain number of years when they complete their probation for these lower level nonviolent offenses. And that's the way it should be. You know, we shouldn't haunt people forever because they made a mistake. You know, I've told a lot of people this. Oh, the vast majority of the people that I prosecuted for crimes are not evil people. You know, these are people that have made poor judgment decisions. They've made mistakes, and sometimes very serious mistakes. And yes, they need to be held accountable for those mistakes, but those mistakes shouldn't haunt them for the rest of their life. So yes, I'm supportive of efforts to try to help individuals get jobs, to get the treatment that they need for the chemical dependency issues that I've talked about. Been a huge supporter of that through treatment courts in our state. And we need to continue to work together to make that part of our system work even better than it is today. And by the way, I've also been supportive of anyone who's once someone who's been convicted of a crime is out of jail or out of prison, even if they should be allowed to vote. You know, and right now you can't vote if you're a felon. And that's not okay. If you're out of jail and out of prison, if you served your time, you paid your debt to society, then you should be able to elect, you should be able to vote for the people who represent you in America. So anyways, I think that should be changed too.
Great. That kind of answered what was potentially my next question. But, you know, if you haven't yet, I just wanted to point to you, there are so many well wishes and thank yous in the comment and chat that I could read those for 15 minutes. So this crowd is definitely very appreciative of your legacy and your public service and the work you've done for us all in the county attorney's office. But maybe one final question would be, you know, you've obviously played a big role in creating change. And if you could change one thing about the current legal system, what would it be?
Boy, that's a good question. First of all, thank you for, I can't read the chats on my screen for some reason. So I want to just thank everybody that sent out kind remarks and well wishes. I have gotten a lot of them over, it's actually been a little overwhelming over the last month after I announced my decision. But listen, I think we need to, I've always been a believer that if we're going to reduce crime in America, we need to start with early intervention efforts with at-risk children. We need to make sure that kids have the adult mentors they need if those mentors are not available in their own home. We've got to do everything we can to work on. I've been really a proud member of a group called Fight Crime, Invest in Kids, because if we invest time and energy and resources in our nation's children, they're going to be successful. We're going to reduce crime in our country, and we're all going to be successful. I'm still involved in that group. I'm going to remain involved with that group as we advocate for policies in those areas. I think that chemical addiction is a real huge problem, as I've talked about a number of times this morning. We need to address that. It's a disease. You know, when I first became the county attorney, I didn't fully understand myself how much of a disease addiction is. Yeah, but I understand it now. And I've seen this in my own family where we've had alcohol addiction that's claimed lives of my loved ones in my extended family. And you know, it's not okay. And we need to help those people, and we need to do everything we can to step in and help them. And I plan to stay involved in those areas as well. The one big issue, though, that I think we need to have more focus on, if there's anything, is mental illness and mental health, and making sure that those individuals who are suffering from mental illness are treated fairly and appropriately in our justice system. We have a long way to go in that area. We need to work together to make sure that we address individuals with mental health needs appropriately. But anyways, that's just a few things. I'm sorry, I'm rambling a little bit.
No, that's great. And again, thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. Thank you for your years of public service and all the great work you've done. And, you know, our best wishes for a happy and healthy retirement. You know, I'm happy you got a first warm week. You enjoy the weather for your first week of retirement. But again, thank you so much for being here and all your work. And it was a real pleasure to meet you and get to visit this morning.
Well, thank you, everyone, for having me. And hopefully when this pandemic is over, I can come by to one of your meetings and say hello in person. So, but thanks for having me. It's really been an honor and a privilege to serve this community for as many years as I have. And so thank you all for having me this morning.
Thank you. Well, and thanks to everyone for joining us this morning. And again, a reminder that our next event is on April 2nd with the newly elected county commissioners. So hope to see you then. All right, everybody, have a great day. Thank you.